In this video I'm going to explain how I did a very simple bit of reskinning, that is changing the textures on somebody else's model, in this case the ex-Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Pug 040, which is absolutely perfect for the Liverpool Overhead Railway's dock lines that ran at ground level underneath the Liverpool Overhead Railway. And so it's a very simple part of reskinning, but I thought that the techniques might be of interest to those of you who are making models for trains, and sometimes somebody else has made a model which you can use, but it just needs a slight variation in the texturing on the model, and that was my aim with this. The model is absolutely beautiful. It's by Skipper 1945, of course, an excellent model, a lovely little engine, and I'm not going to change any of the functionality or look or anything like that. I'm just going to make some minor variations on the original model in order for it to fit the Liverpool Overhead Railway project a bit better. Well, first of all, the first thing you have to do whenever you reskin a model is you should get the permission of the original model creator. And so I contacted Skipper, and he very kindly gave me permission. And although he had said in the config that you could do this if you credit him for it, but I think it's the correct thing to do is to contact the original model maker and ask them. I've had people ask me if they can reskin some of my models. Normally I say no. So here I am reskinning somebody else's, having said no to others reskinning some of mine. The reason for my not giving permission is that often the models that they are talking about wouldn't have appeared in any other sort of livery or look. So for example, I don't like to have any of the County Donegal or other Irish narrow gauge railway items reskin, because they just wouldn't have looked like that, and I like to stick with the originals. But in this case I'm going to change this model very slightly so that it's suitable for Liverpool, and it's going to be the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board company that's running it. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to lose the British Rail lion logo on each side, and I'm going to lose the number and detail there and on the front, and I'm going to add a spark arrestor above the chimney there, and that's all I'm going to do, nothing else. I don't want to detract from what's an excellent model. I really don't. I just want to tweak it just that little bit so as to give us the option of using it on the dock lines, because they were so characteristic. So what do? Okay, well, let's have a look. Well, the first thing that I did is I went into Content Manager, and this is just searching under Pug, and you can see there Pug Test. That's the actual route that I've got open. My incredible invention there, and here we have the one that I eventually ended up with, and this one here is Skipper 1945. That's the one he created, 2.8 meg. So to make and these are dependencies required by his model of the Skipper's model of the Pug. So I'm not going to alter anything at all of those. Those are all fine. You can just leave that. So the first thing I'm going to do in order to be able to create a different version, and you'll see here that I've done mine under my own KUID number there. This is Skipper's up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is open his, show in Explorer, so I can see exactly what it comprises. There it is there. So it's open for editing, and this is what I'm going to have to use. So let's just go up to editing, and there it is there, look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that folder, and I'm going to put it into my Liverpool Overhead Railway working folder. And so let's stick it in here, paste it in here, and there it is. So now we have a copy of that. So now what I can do, I'm not touching anything else there, close that and revert to original. There we are, as installed from the download also it was the download center, DLS, download site, I guess. Right, okay, so here we are. So now if we open it up, we've got the skipper's arrangement for the pug, and you can see there he uses a number of twinkle effects there. I want to keep all of those, they're great. He's got a script, I've not a clue. I think the scripting is somewhere akin to the black art, so I've not a clue about any of that, and I don't want to change any of it. There's his config. Well, obviously I'm going to change it to something more suitable for me. His shadow, I'm quite happy with the shadow. Screenshot I'm going to replace because obviously it'll be a different model. So this is where most of the model exists, in pug body. So let's have a look there, and those are all the text files relating to the textures, and here are the meshes that make up the locomotive, and here are the BMP files which are used for opacity. They supplement these TGA files. So TGA's the main textures, and then the BMP files affect the opacity. And you'll see how I do that in a minute. So the first thing I'm going to do is, well, first thing I did was have a look at the body, and I used PevSoft's mesh viewer. So that will blank my screen. Yes, let's have a look at it and give it a moment. Here it is. So now we're just looking, and you can see there that is the single piece of the mesh that is the body. And you can see the difficulties that I've got here. I've got to remove, that's a curved surface there, and I want to remove the British Rail logo, and I want to insert and put across that curved boiler MD and HB, Merseyside Docks and Harbour Board, and I want to eliminate that and eliminate that. So we go back to the textures, and let's have a look at what textures we've got. Well, we've got the lion left and the lion right, so I'm not going to touch those at all. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to here, the opacity, and if I open those, they'll open in Paint Shop Pro. There it is. Okay, so that's telling Trainz which bit of the TGA texture it can show. So my next step is to, I've got black as the main colour, I'm just going to select all of the area that isn't black, and I'm going to fill it in. It's not black, is it? It looks like grey. So let's go to black. Okay, there we are, black. So in other words, no opacity. And I'm going to save that, and let's close that, and then let's load this up again, because I don't really want to muck about too much. And there, look, the line on that side has gone, disappeared. So let's do the one on the left. That was the right one. So let's do, that was the, sorry, that was, yeah, that was the one on the left rather. So let's do the right hand one. And we're just going to do the same thing again there. Just going to highlight all of the black and bucket fill it and save it, and then refresh this viewing, and it's gone. Yo! So that was easy. If only it was all so easy, because I've got to add MD and HBD onto there. But meanwhile, let's get rid of these running numbers, which all of the locos on the dock lines had running numbers, of course, and because we're going to use the same model several times over the LOR, I decided just to remove any running numbers. I mean, 13 would have been a suitable number to put there, for example. So we've got to find the, this is the texture, look, that's 769, that's almost certainly the main texture. Let's have a look at that, double click on that, here it is, and we've got some of the numbers. That's the number on the smoke box door, there. So we've got to do something about that, and in fact what I would do is I would just picking up some of the grey from somewhere else, I would just copy and paste that over it and save this as another version of the texture. But what else have we got there in the way of numbers? 5128 TGA, that looks like it's a, let's have a look at that. Yes, there we are. Look, so I'm gonna, there's its opacity file, so let's, and then on this one I'm going to do exactly what I did with the line. This is the easy bit. I'm just going to out, there we are, gone. And I don't mind that I'm leaving unused textures in the model. For one thing, because I can't edit the mesh, because they're not my meshes, they're Skipper's, and I don't want to edit them at all. I don't want to touch his, really good work. All I want to do, the fact that I'm leaving some textures in which are going to take up a bit of room, but are not being used, well, that's the price I pay. And there it is gone, look, after refreshing that. Basically what I've done is I've turned the lion, a little bit of mesh with the lion on, and the bit of mesh with the numbers on, I've turned them invisible. And you've got to take my word for it that I just removed that as well. But that's all I wanted to do. I didn't really want to remove the LMS plate. Is it LMS? Yeah, I didn't really want to remove that at all. So I'm quite happy with that. It's a nice little shunter for the docks. But what about, well, what are the other things? We've got to put the lettering on, and we've got to put the spark arrestor. So that means we're going to have to make some sort of mesh to add to this. Now what I'm going to do now is, well, first of all I'll show you the first thing I wanted to do is I've got to make a texture to make the lettering. So I went into freehand, and there is my lettering. Now it's going to be MD and HBD, Mersey, Dock and Harbour board. Okay, and then I exported that to my paint program, PaintShop Pro, which I use all the time. Let's just make that out there, and then I'm going to close it. Right, and now I'm going to switch from the one I downloaded to the one that I actually worked on, which is my version here, the Reskin. So actually I don't want to keep that. So there's my Reskin, which is virtually the same. It's virtually the same here. I think it's only the screenshot and the config have been edited. Let's go into the pug body here. The only thing I've done, you can see, got MD and HB lettering BNP. So I've added that in. So let's have a quick look at that. There we are. So that's the lettering, and I've given it a sort of a dirty colour, the correct colour. So I've taken those black letters and I've used their shapes that I created in freehand, and I've created this colouring. This is my texture, and you can see it's 512 by 64. Always powers of 2, remember. Okay, and there is of course an associated, excuse me, there is an associated BNP file that gives it that's the opacity to show which bits of that previous texture I'm going to allow to be seen. So all the black bits are hidden, and that's letting the lettering through. Okay, and now comes the fun part, which is once you've created the texture, you then got to create something to attach to the model that you're reskinning. And what I did with that, let's go up here and close that down. Just looking for here it is. Just load up Gmax. Just takes a moment. There we are. And let's have a look down here. The reason I'm doing that is just that I stay in the same folder. Now, I think I did. I've called it Pug Edition. There we are. This is where the fun begins. So you can see here, this is in Gmax, and what we've got here is just the mesh. If I turn that and give that a wireframe, you'll see what I've got. I've got the mesh, which is carefully curved in two parts, a plane which I've carefully curved and which has got the lettering on. Let's go back to smoothing highlights. There we are. That's the lettering for each side of the body. You can see the curve on it there. And then here I've got a very simple bit of mesh, which is the spark arrestor. Now, how did I know where to put it? Well, I didn't. I tried to estimate it. I tried to position it so that where the mesh, skipper's mesh, which is somewhere here, hidden here, not in this file, but if you've got to imagine it's there, that the chimney is here and the boiler and the cab. But I could only do it partly by sort of dead reckoning and by using, well, what you can do is you can use, if I use show attachments here, you've got an idea what the mesh, the body mesh looks like. And you can sort of do it by dead reckoning because you've got the XYZ coordinates. And if you had a plan of a pug, which I didn't, then you could probably work it out by dead reckoning where to exactly position the lettering here and the spark arrestor up here, but I didn't. So I played around with it, and it meant backwards and forwards quite a few times until I got these in the correct position. And once I'd got the two bits, this spark arrestor used some of the text, used the texture. Let's have a look here. Boiler front plate M7. I think if we look down in here, that is one of boiler front plate M7. There we are. That's one of Skipper's own textures, and I just used that to texture up the spark arrestor. I just wanted a few shades of grey, basically, just to create the effect. So having done that, having made this and repeatedly gone backwards and forwards into mesh viewer to see if I got it hit right, but also what I had to do, of course, was to edit the config. Once I'd got this created, I then exported it as lettering.im. You can see it's only 9 kilobytes. It's just those letters and the spark arrestor. Everything else didn't touch. Deliberately avoided it. I just inserted that, and I also put in my lettering TGA and BMP. And here we are. See, I've labelled it with the reskin. The config was important though. So first of all, I put my name for it up there. I tried to use my own initials at the front to identify my own. All this, everything here. Author, I changed that to me. Contact email, that's my new email address, by the way. The original author of this asset, Skipper 1945, who gave commission for the reskin. Here it is. His is his original blurb, what it was used for, and then that's from him, and now this is from me. This is a minor reskin because, you know, gentle touch, just a gentle little change. Blanked out the BR lines and the running numbers, the original added Mersey docks and Harbour wall letting, plus a spark baffle above the chimney. All the next bit, all these extensions, everything there are all exactly unchanged. There's the body mesh. There you see it, the body mesh, and all of the attachments, lamps and couplings and all the rest of it, all as in Skipper's original. There's the shadow, there's the load, and now after the load I've added a new section. In other words, now add my little tiny bit of mesh, which is pug body lettering IM, and I use the attachment point of bogey 2 as my attachment locator, as it were. nothing else has changed, all the rest exactly, those are all the twinkles. And there's the license, where Skipper does say you can modify it and redistribute it without asking for permission. Please, people, if you want to reskin something, just have the courtesy to ask the original creator. And once I'd done this, I did send Skipper both this version and my Gmax file, just for his own reference. So there we are. So I've altered the config just to bring that lettering. So that's how I'm going to, as it were, tag the lettering, or not tag, I'm going to attach the lettering, my bit, into pre-existing, because you've got a series of meshes here. The body, I'm not sure what that one is, I'm not going to worry about it. The load, the shadow, right, I don't know what the others are, I'm not going to fret about that. And there we are. So that gives us all that we need to bring that in, and it's just a question of trial and error, I found, getting the exact position right. And you can be a little bit frustrating doing that, but persistence pays, and you do achieve quite a decent look in the end. And after all, you've done very little, and the original creator has done all the hard work for you. Okay, so here's that original which I was mucking about with. Let's open another. That's the downloaded one, the one I've copied from the. So where's my reskin? There it is. Pug body, and this time let's have a look at the body. It shouldn't look a lot different to that. No, there we are. Okay, so this is one of the components. If I then look at the lettering one, that's the same as in Gmax. That's now been exported. There it is. The dirty plate at the bottom and a rain-washed plate at the top. Right, we can't really do any more with that. And now let's go back to our content manager, and if we do Control Shift R, get a preview. There is all of the Skipper's pug rotating around. I mean, you can stop that, I think. Yeah, there we are. Clicking furiously. So what I deleted was the lion number there, and that number there. Okay, so that's the original, and here's mine. Control Shift R, here we go. And there we are. You can see all that I've done is I've added the lettering along the side and the spark arrestor along the top, which was a characteristic of the locomotives that ran on the dock lines beneath the Liverpool Overhead Railway, which is where this is destined to go. But apart from that, the beauty of this little model is absolutely unchanged. I don't think it's really detracted from it. And the problems I did have, I wasn't able to bring in the rivet detail here, or here. It would have been mind-numbingly complicated to achieve that, so I didn't do that. So there we are, that's that. Let's have a look at it in the flesh, as it were, in Trainz. So there it is, in Trainz. There's the original. Let's have a quick kite round, and now, and if we go along here, here's my reskin. Virtually unchanged, but just those little differences that will suit it so well for running underneath the Liverpool Overhead Railway. So I hope that's given you an idea of how to do a very minor reskin. I didn't want to change anything else. The model looks lovely without anything else, but it would mean that you could add detail to where locos like the Pugs, which were so flexible, so handy, like that little short 040 wheelbase, great for getting around those very narrow tight corners and those narrow spaces in the docks. So that's now going to appear on our Liverpool Overhead Railway layout, and it's going to be in several copies, identical copies will just appear, and that's why there's no running numbers. And The idea is to have these running down underneath the viaduct of the Liverpool Overhead. Well, I hope that's been of interest. I hope that's given you some ideas on how to use. This is the correct way, I think, for using reskins. These ones where they completely rip it apart and turn it into something that looks like out of, well, I don't know, some sort of Disney cartoon. I'm not a great fan of that at all. I think if it wasn't an original, then you shouldn't really be doing it. But that's why I don't normally allow reskins of some of my models. But Skipper George was very helpful, very kind to let me redo that, and it's just given it that little edge now to fit it into the lines around Liverpool docks. So that's all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been of interest and helpful to you if you fancy doing something like this. It's not really difficult once you methodically work your way through it and just plan it out in advance. So I'd urge you to have a go to suit locos, the range of locos that are available on the DLS and for Trainz, and to adapt them for your own particular layouts. So that will appear, I'm sure, in the next update of the Liverpool Overhead Railway project, which I'm sure Bob will have done. We've had quite a few fun and games because the next update has been delayed because we're having to rejig the area around Herculaneum Dock Station quite considerably. Mike Edge, who's made the original club or the layout to be shown at model railway meetings, did point out that it was about 2 foot higher than the other stations, and I blithely ignored that and paid for it with my time, because I've had to go back and raise Herculaneum Dock Station, which I'm currently working on, and a whole of the carriage shed, the Dingle Portal Tunnel, and the junction piece, viaduct splines, everything, in order for it to properly fit, because you've got to be able to run one of these little pugs underneath the viaduct. And although normally there's plenty of headroom at Herculaneum Dock, there is this rather bizarre passenger underpass which goes underneath the viaduct, and so I've got it set at the moment so there's about 6 inches clearance for these pugs to go under the underpass, and indeed any rolling stock standard British profile rolling stock. So there we are. I hope that's of interest. If you have any questions, queries, comments, suggestions, please do post them up. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel.